3 hours before my brother's wedding, I received a message that stopped everything. Don't go to the wedding, check your husband's garage. No name, no context. Just that. I stared at the screen confused. Was this some kind of prank? A wrong number? But something inside me, something quiet and cold, told me it wasn't. I was wearing a soft blue dress, makeup, fresh hair, curled heels. Ready. It was supposed to be a beautiful day. Nathan. My baby brother was marrying Charlotte, the woman he adored, the woman we all thought was perfect for him, and Mason, my husband of 10 years, had left earlier that morning for a client meeting. He kissed me goodbye, smiled, said he'd see me at the ceremony. That smile, I remember it now, too calm, too practiced. That text, it ripped a seam in the day, and I couldn't ignore it, so I checked. And what I found in that garage destroyed everything. Now let me ask you, if someone sent you that message, would you have opened the door? Let me know in the comments. And if you've ever uncovered a lie that shattered your world, you're not alone. Share your story. Subscribe for more stories like this every single day. My name is Olivia Taylor. I'm 34 years old, a senior accountant living in Seattle. 10 years ago, I married Mason. We were both 24. Young, hopeful, maybe a little naive, but it felt right. He was calm, intelligent, quiet in a way that made you feel safe. I was the more structured one, detail-oriented, grounded. Together we balanced each other, or so I thought. We never had kids. That was mostly my call. I kept telling myself there'd be time. One more promotion, one more big contract. Then maybe we'd try. Mason never pushed. He said he was fine either way. As long as we have each other, he used to say. Our marriage from the outside looked perfect. People always said we were solid, dependable. No scandals, no fights at parties, no shouting matches. We were polite. Predictable, safe. But safety can hide a lot of rot. That morning, I was getting ready in my old bedroom at my parents' house. We'd all agreed to gather there before heading to the wedding venue. Nathan's big day. He was marrying Charlotte Bennett, the girl everyone in town adored. Charlotte was sweet, bubbly, charming in a way that always made people smile when she walked into a room. I liked her, or at least I tried to. But something always sat off with me. Something I never quite admitted even to myself. Nathan, though, he was over the moon. I'd never seen him like that with anyone else, and that made me happy. Because Nathan is the kind of person who gives his whole heart to the people he loves. No filter, no hesitation. That kind of purity deserves the same in return. That morning, the house was filled with energy. My mom was in the kitchen making her famous lemon scones, humming to herself. My dad sat at the table with a checklist and a coffee mug, crossing off names of guests and vendors. Laughter floated through the air, the scent of fresh baking mixed with perfume and flowers. It should have felt warm, safe. But there was something wrong. Mason had left earlier, just after sunrise. Said he had to meet a client across town. He brushed a kiss on my cheek and whispered, "I'll see you at the altar." Love, I smiled back, distracted. Told him to drive safe. But as soon as the door clicked shut, a strange weight settled in my chest. It was like the walls shifted slightly. The light in the room dimmed. I told myself I was being dramatic. Then the message came, "Don't go to the wedding, check your husband's garage." It appeared out of nowhere. No name, no warning. Just those words. I stared at it for a full minute, frozen. My first instinct was denial. It had to be a scam or some prank. I even laughed nervously to myself and locked the screen, but my heart was already racing. And the more I tried to distract myself, helping Mom in the kitchen, chatting with Dad, rechecking my makeup in the mirror, the more that message screamed in the back of my mind. Don't go. Check over and over again like a drumbeat. I couldn't silence. What if it was nothing? But what if it was something Mason and I had never kept secrets? Or so I believed. But how well do we really know the people we live with? How deeply do we look when things seem calm on the surface? I needed answers. And deep down, I already knew the peace I clung to was about to be shattered. All it would take was a key. And the courage to turn it. I sat on the edge of my childhood bed, the message still glowing on my phone screen. Don't go to the wedding. Check your husband's garage. The words didn't fade. They clung to the edges of my vision like a shadow. I couldn't blink away. I tried calling Mason straight to voicemail. Texted him, no reply. I waited 5 minutes, 10, then 20, all while trying to smile through conversations with my parents like nothing was wrong. But the clock was ticking, and that ache in my chest had grown into a dull, persistent throb. That's when I remembered the key. Months ago, Mason had offhandedly mentioned making a spare for emergencies. Just in case, he said, dropping it into the keepsake box in our closet, the one filled with old concert tickets, postcards, and little notes we used to write when we were younger. I snuck into the guest room, shut the door quietly, and pulled down the old wooden box. There it was. A single silver key. Unmarked, ordinary. But somehow it felt heavier than anything I'd ever held. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. I slipped out the front door while Mom was focused on the pies, and Dad was reading a printed copy of the ceremony agenda. My heels clicked on the sidewalk as I walked toward the car, but I barely noticed. My hands were cold, my breath uneven. The garage was only a few blocks away. Mason kept it separate from the house, rented years ago when he wanted extra space for projects. He rarely talked about what he kept in there, said it was mostly tools, old junk, nothing exciting. I'd never had a reason to question that. Until now, when I arrived, the row of storage garages stood in perfect lifeless order. Gray doors, rusted hinges, silence. I found Mason's unit. My fingers fumbled the key into the lock. Click, the door creaked open. It was dark inside. The air was stale, thick with oil and old rubber. My phone flashlight cut through the shadows. I saw the outline of Mason's old Lincoln in the back. Shelves of boxes, toolkits, tires. Nothing out of the ordinary. My chest loosened. Maybe it really had been a cruel joke. But then in the far corner, something caught my eye. A large cardboard box, covered in a faded blanket. Slightly out of place, I walked toward it, my steps slow, uncertain. I pulled back the blanket and froze. Inside the box were things that didn't belong to either of us. A red leather purse, a pair of gold high heels, a branded perfume box I recognized from Charlotte's favorite boutique downtown. My breath hitched. Charlotte. Nathan's fiancée. I stepped back, heart pounding in my ears. No, this couldn't be. It didn't make sense, but it did. It made far too much sense. I crouched and opened the purse. Inside was her wallet, her makeup kit, a set of keys, and at the very bottom, a small envelope of photographs. My hands trembled as I pulled them out. The first photo showed Mason and Charlotte on a beach barefoot, smiling, his arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder. The next, the two of them sipping wine at a cafe, laughing. Another kissing in front of a mural I recognized from a trip Mason had claimed was for work. My fingers went numb. Each picture screamed what I couldn't yet say aloud. They were together, not just once, not a mistake, not a fling. This was a relationship, a history, a betrayal, and it was happening behind both Nathan's and my back. I staggered to my feet, clutching the photos like they might catch fire. I wanted to scream, to smash everything in that garage, to call Mason and Charlotte and demand answers, explanations, something. But I couldn't. Not yet, because at the very bottom of the box was a folder labeled in Charlotte's handwriting. I opened it, and what I read changed everything. The folder was thick, heavier than I expected. Inside were printed emails, text messages, handwritten notes, pages upon pages. All of them between Mason and Charlotte. I couldn't stop myself. I read every word. Baby, I'm so glad we're doing this together. Once I marry Nathan, we'll finally have everything. You'll leave Olivia. I'll leave Nathan, just a little longer. I don't love him. I never did. This is for us. My vision blurred. Each line was another fracture in the foundation of everything I thought I knew. Charlotte, the woman my brother was about to marry. The woman who stood in our family photos, laughed with my parents over dinner, helped me choose his wedding gift. She had never loved him. She was using him and Mason, my husband, my partner of 10 years. He had let her. He had planned it with her. They had smiled in my face and lied without flinching. I felt my knees buckle. I dropped the folder onto the hood of the Lincoln and grabbed the edge for balance. My whole world spun. This wasn't just infidelity. This was betrayal on a scale I couldn't comprehend. I thought of Nathan, of the way his face lit up when he talked about Charlotte, how he'd told me she made him feel like he could finally breathe. He didn't know. He had no idea. And the ceremony was just hours away. Guests were already arriving, the flowers had been delivered. The cake was probably being wheeled into the venue. As I stood here shaking broken in the shadows of this garage, my instinct was to run, to disappear and let it unfold. But then I saw Nathan's smile in my mind, his trust, and I knew I couldn't stay silent. Not for his sake, not for mine. I began taking pictures. Dozens of them, every message, every photograph. Every piece of evidence, I documented everything methodically. No shaking hands, now no hesitation. I didn't know who sent me that anonymous message, but whoever they were, they'd given me time, and I was going to use every second of it. When I finished, I gently placed everything back where I found it. The purse, the heels, the perfume box, the folder I wiped down. Every surface I touched. If Mason realized someone had been there too soon, he might destroy the evidence, or worse, manipulate Nathan before I had the chance to speak. When I finally stepped out of the garage and locked the door behind me, the sun was still shining, but the warmth didn't reach me. The world felt thinner, like the skin of reality had been peeled back, revealing something raw underneath. I walked to my car without fully feeling my feet on the ground. I opened the door, sat down, and stared at the steering wheel. For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. What do I do now? Crash the wedding, announce it over the mic. No. That wasn't me. That would only humiliate Nathan. He didn't deserve that, but he deserved the truth. He deserved to hear it from me. I dialed his number. He picked up on the third ring. His voice was bright, distracted, full of wedding day energy. Hey, Liv, you're running late? Everything okay? I swallowed hard. Nathan, I need to see you alone. Before the ceremony, his voice shifted immediately. Serious now. What's wrong? It's not something I can say over the phone. Pause. A long exhale. Is it about Charlotte? I closed my eyes. Yes. Silence. Then back entrance of the venue. 30 minutes, and he hung up. My hands were still cold. My heart was still cracked. But I had made the choice, and I knew there was no going back. I arrived at the back entrance of the venue. 26 minutes later, Nathan was already there, pacing in tight circles, his tuxedo jacket slightly askew, tie half loosened. He looked up as soon as he saw me. There was a flicker of relief, then worry. Olivia, what's going on? I didn't answer right away. I reached into my purse and pulled out the envelope, the one now holding all the printed photographs, the screenshots, the handwritten letters. I handed it to him. His brow furrowed as he opened it. He pulled out the first photo, then the next, and then the next. His expression changed slowly, confusion, disbelief, horror. His mouth parted, but no words came out. And when he got to the messages, he stopped. He didn't read them aloud. He didn't need to. I watched his hands begin to shake. Is this real? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. I wish it wasn't, I said quietly. But I found it all in Mason's garage. Nathan took a shaky breath, his eyes darting across the page, like he was hoping the words would change, but they didn't. He clenched the envelope in both hands, staring at the ground for a long time. Then he asked why. Why would she do this to me? I stepped closer and gently touched his arm. I don't know, Nathan. But you can't marry her. Not like this. He nodded slowly. The guests, Mom and Dad, everyone's already inside. You don't have to explain anything right now, I said, but you do have to stop it. He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had changed. The hurt was still there, but now there was resolve. He adjusted his tie, straightened his jacket, and together we walked inside. The ceremony room was filled with music and hushed excitement. Champagne glasses clinked. People laughed unaware. Charlotte stood at the altar adjusting her veil. She turned toward Nathan with a practiced smile. Danny, she said, voice light. Where have you been? We're about to start. Nathan stopped in the middle of the aisle and said loud enough for the whole room to hear. There won't be a wedding. Silence. Not even the string quartet knew what to do. Charlotte blinked. What Nathan's voice was calm. Strong. I know everything, Charlotte. About you. About Mason. He held up the photos. Gasps rippled through the room like a tidal wave. Charlotte's face drained of color. That's a lie, she snapped. You're being manipulated. I've seen the messages, Nathan said. The ones where you tell Mason he's the only one you ever loved, that marrying me was just a cover. Charlotte turned to me, eyes wide with fury. It was you, wasn't it? You couldn't stand to see us happy. I couldn't stand to see you destroy my brother, I replied. You were never going to be happy, not when everything you built was a lie. She took a step toward me, her hand raised, but Nathan caught her wrist midair. Don't, he said. Just don't. She stared at him like she didn't recognize him anymore. Her voice trembled. You're throwing everything away? No, he said. You did. Charlotte looked around the room at the stunned guests, the collapsing dream around her, and then she ran, veil dragging behind her heels, echoing on the marble floor, gone. Nathan stood still for a moment, then he slowly lowered himself into a chair. Head in hands, I knelt beside him. It's over, I whispered, but you're not alone. He looked at me, eyes glassy but focused. Thank you, he said, for not letting me walk into it blind. The wedding was canceled, people murmured. Some left, others stayed dazed, eating canapes in silence, but Nathan didn't care. Neither did I. We'd torn the mask off a lie that nearly poisoned all of us. And later that day, Mason came looking for me. I saw him across the parking lot, his walk fast, his eyes wide. He knew, he just didn't know how much I knew. Not yet, but he was about to find out. I saw Mason, the moment he stepped onto the venue's side lot. His shoulders were stiff, his face pale. He walked toward me like a man chasing something slipping through his fingers. Olivia, he said sharply, eyes darting around. What the hell happened? Why did Nathan cancel the wedding? I stood still, not moving, not blinking. Because he knows, I said. Mason froze. Knows what? He knows about you and Charlotte. His mouth fell open slightly. He blinked like I'd hit him in the face. What are you? No, you're mistaken. You're confused. I saw the photos, I said, my voice calm. I read the messages, the ones you printed and left in your garage. Silence. His jaw clenched, his eyes narrowed. You went through my things. You planned to start a new life with my brother's fiancée. I think we're past the point of privacy, Mason. His hands balled into fists. You ruined everything. No, I said. You ruined it. The moment you let her into your life, the moment you lied to me every single day for who knows how long. You don't understand, he growled. Charlotte, she was never supposed to mean anything. And then it got complicated. But we had a plan. And what was I, Mason? I asked, stepping closer. A placeholder, a legal roommate. Until your affair worked itself into something permanent. You'll regret this, he said. Through clenched teeth. You've just made the biggest mistake of your life. No, I said. I finally made the right one. He didn't respond. He stared at me for a long, hateful second. Then he turned and walked away. Not a word of apology, not even a goodbye. I watched him go, my heart heavy, but not because I still loved him. I didn't. That version of Mason, the one I thought I loved, had died the moment I opened that box in the garage. What stood in front of me now was a stranger wearing my husband's face. I drove home alone. The silence in the car was thick, almost peaceful. 2 days later, Mason came to collect his things. He didn't speak, just packed what he needed and left. There was no shouting, no tears, only the hollow sound of drawers closing, suitcases zipping, and a door shutting for the last time. I didn't try to stop him. I didn't look back. I contacted a divorce attorney the next morning. We didn't have children. No prenup, no shared business, just a mortgage and a decade of memories that meant nothing anymore. He didn't contest a thing. I signed the papers with a hand that didn't shake. In the weeks that followed, the apartment was quiet. Too quiet at first. I would find myself waking at 2 a.m., reaching for a man who wasn't there, only to remember I didn't want him there. But eventually the silence became something else. Freedom. I started cleaning. Boxing up old wedding photos, throwing out anniversary cards, clearing the closet of all the clothes he'd forgotten or abandoned. And then one night just before trash day, I sat on the floor in the living room and cried. Not because I wanted him back, but because I had finally let him go. Mason wasn't the love of my life. He was the lesson, and sometimes that's even more important. Nathan was hurting too. He didn't say much those first few days, but we saw each other often. Quiet dinners, walks through the park, long talks in the backyard after our parents went to bed. The betrayal had hit him harder than he let on, but he never blamed me. If anything, it made us closer. One night he looked at me over a plate of half-eaten pasta and said softly, "You saved me." I shook my head. "You would have done the same for me." He didn't argue, he just reached out and took my hand across the table. That small gesture said everything. We weren't okay. Not yet, but we would be together. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. No courtroom drama, no drawn-out battles. Mason signed and walked away. Like everything else he'd ever done, quick, clean, and without confrontation. But I didn't feel victorious. I didn't even feel angry anymore. I felt released. For the first time in years, I could breathe without holding part of myself back. I sold our apartment and bought a small place across town. Nothing fancy, just enough space for peace. I painted the walls a warm, soft gray and filled the shelves with books I hadn't touched in a decade. I even hung wind chimes outside the window, the kind Mason used to complain about. I left my job too, 10 years at the same firm. A safe job, a stable life, but safety had hidden far too much. So I walked away from that version of myself, the one who tolerated, endured, adjusted. I found a position at a smaller company, one that valued creativity, where I wasn't just a number on a spreadsheet. It wasn't as prestigious, but I smiled more. I laughed without wondering if someone was watching. I slept. And Nathan, he started traveling. He bought an old camera and picked up photography again, something he hadn't done since high school. He sent me pictures, sunsets, market streets, strangers' faces frozen mid-laughter. He said he finally felt like he was living. Sometimes we'd meet up just to sit in silence, no pressure, no noise, just two people who survived something that should have broken them but didn't. And then one day my phone rang. The number wasn't saved. I almost ignored it, but I answered Olivia. "This is Ethan. I used to work with Mason." I blinked, startled. "Yes, I remember. I was the one who sent the message." Silence. He continued, voice steady but sad. "Charlotte tried something with me too. Before Mason, I didn't know how far she'd gone until I saw them together. I couldn't stay quiet. I didn't think anyone would believe me, so I sent the message anonymously." I whispered. "You saved me." "No," he said. "I just lit the match. You burned the lie to the ground." When the call ended, I stood by the window for a long time, letting that truth settle in. I hadn't been alone, and that meant everything. Weeks later, I found a photo in my mailbox, no return address. It was me and Nathan from a barbecue years ago. Young, carefree, unbreakable. On the back in clean handwriting were 5 words. "Some truths are worth fighting for." I framed it and placed it on my new bookshelf. Because they are the biggest lesson. Betrayal isn't the end of your story, it's the start of a truer one. I don't look back in anger anymore. I look back and understand. I know now that instinct is never wrong, that peace is worth protecting, and that the strongest kind of love is the one you fight to give to yourself. Betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it's the people you trusted the most. Olivia's story reminds us that instincts matter, that silence can protect no one. And that truth, even when it hurts, is always the beginning of freedom. What would you have done in Olivia's shoes? Would you have opened the garage? Would you have told your brother before the wedding? Let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And if you believe Olivia did the right thing, vote number 3. If you think she should have handled it differently, vote number 9. Don't forget to subscribe to EN Reddit Story so you never miss a powerful real-life drama every single day.